Real estate investment practice problem using Excel. Adjustable rate mortgage or ARM with rate caps, part number 3. Get ready because we're raising the stakes with real estate. Here we are in our Excel worksheet. If you have access to the Excel worksheet would like to follow along, note that we have 3 tabs on down below: example, practice, and blank. Let's take a look at them now, starting with the example tab, in essence being an answer key. We started out our practice problem considering the standard fixed rate mortgage and the related amortization table, comparing and contrasting it to the work we're doing now with the adjustable rate mortgage. The difference between this problem and a prior problem being that we're adding the complexity of caps, annual rate cap and the lifetime rate cap. We then considered the index rate being the rate that we're going to be basing our rates on, an index basically being a measure of what's happening in the economy over time. We then have the non-restricted rate, which would be the rate including the margin without the restrictions being applied. We then applied our restrictions, which were the annual cap and lifetime cap, intuitively, and then with a more complex formula for logic functions. We then calculated the payment calculations. As we did so, we calculated the balances from the amortization table, constructing the amortization table as we went. Now, we're going to be using a formula to get to these ending balances, which can be a little bit faster to do. It's still useful to use the amortization table when you have a chance because it helps you with that double check. So now we'll do the calculation of the ending balances, double checking them with the amortization table. Second tab on down below is going to be the practice tab. Has pre-formatted cells so you can work through the practice problem with a little less formatting. First tab is the blank tab, where we started this whole thing out from one little scratch, and then we built this whole thing from it. And so now we've got this, and so then here, this is where we left off in terms of our table. So we got the index, we've got the unrestricted activity, we've got the restricted rates. These are the rates that are actually going to be applicable. Then we have the payment that we calculated, and now we're recalculating these ending balances. Now, before I do that, I just want to put in the graph. We've been doing these graphs so we could see the relationship between the index, the rate, and the restricted rate. To do that, we're going to select, I'm going to go up to the top here and select these items right there, and then we'll simply go to the Insert tab. We want to go then to the information for the tables, and we're going to be inserting chart, I should say. I'm going to look for the recommended chart and see if it just gives me what I would like to see on the recommendations. That's the one. That's the one. That looks about right. So we're going to say OK. There we have our chart. I'm going to get rid of the name up top. Don't need the name. And then I'm going to format this to fit right down here in this little spot that we have for it, right down there. So it fits right in there. So now, just to note that we have this difference between the blue and the orange is the margin, right? That's the margin index versus the rate with the margin if there were no caps. And then we got the restricted rate, which of course the caps are now being applied. So you have this bit of a difference than what would be the difference with just a margin, just to get an idea of what that might look like on a graphic kind of basis. Okay, so now we're going to be recalculating the ending balances. So let's first just delete the ending balances. We got these from the amortization tables on the right-hand side, but now we're going to do it with a fancy formula. As we delete it, the payments get deleted too, even though there's already a reference in there. As we construct the ending balances for this cell, that then payment calculation will calculate ending balance for this cell, will calculate this payment, and so on and so forth. We're basically going to be backing into the balance with the use and calculation of the payment. So we're going to say this is going to be equal to the payment and then divide by, and then we're going to use our payment calculation, which I'm going to say with a negative PMT shift 9, picking up the rate, which will just be that 11% divided by 12 to get the monthly amount, comma. Then we're going to have our number of periods. I'm going to say brackets. We're first going to think about this in terms of years. We basically want to get to 29, but have something that we can copy down. So we're going to go over to the 30. That's outside of our data or table. Therefore, F4 on the keyboard, making an absolute $ before the L and the 5, minus, we're going to pick up the 1 over here. That's going to bring us down to 29. Closing up the brackets, that's in years. We're going to multiply that times 12 to get to months. And then we're going to say comma, and then the last little twist is we're going to put a 1 here for the present value to back into the balance, and then close this whole thing up and enter. And there we got it. We got the 99550. So that 99550 is not going anywhere in terms of our table. It's not going into our table. So we can use our table to kind of double check it, because our table is based on this payment amount and the interest rate change after the year one calculation, or this rate in the payment. So the ending amount on the table is that 99550, which can still give us kind of that double check. So I highly recommend working with the amortization table if you have a chance. Notice this payment calculation has now populated automatically because we had copied down that formula on the payment. So let's go ahead and practice our balance calculation a few more times. So this is going to be equal to the prior payment backing into the balance divided by the payment calculation, negative PMT, shift 9, rate 12%, dividing that by 12, because we want the monthly rate, comma, the number of periods, brackets. We're going to start with years. We're looking 30 minus 2 now, or 28. The 30 is over here. It's outside of our table, therefore making it absolute. F4, $ before the L and 5, minus, we're going to pick up the 2 on the left-hand side, then close up the brackets, multiply times 12 to get to the months, and then comma, and put a 1 at the end for the final item, and shift 9 to close up the brackets and enter. Now, if we were to notice that this one populates automatically, if we were to copy this down, it should populate automatically, meaning these will populate and the payments will populate, even though they're kind of staggered. It'll populate all the way down, so we can say, there it goes, and it looks like it's doing what we think it should. But let's just do it one at a time here. Let's keep on going. We can check this. That's the 99141 at the end of year 2. 99141. Once again, we have done it correctly. Let's do it again. Let's keep the trend going. Third time, hat trick if we get this one right. So this is going to be equal to the prior payment. We're going to divide that by the negative PMT calculation, shift 9, rate at the 14%, divided by 12 to get the monthly amount, comma, number of periods, brackets. Picking up the years first, we're taking the 30 years. That's outside the table, therefore absolute reference, F4 keyboard, $ before L and 5, minus 3. Over here, we're pulling over the 3 from our table, closing it up. That's the years, multiplying times 12 to get to the months, comma, and then just closing it out with 1 on the present value. Close up the brackets, shift 0, and enter. There we have it. We've done it again. We've done it again 3 times in a row successfully without a flaw that can be seen. That was flawless. Flawless. Let's drag it down. It does look like it's copied down, so we got our absolute references done properly. I'm going to delete it so we can practice again. The 29838 should be in our amortization table after 3 years. Or the 98838, it is. It is. That's the way it is. So let's try it again. Got to be able to work these things under pressure when the clock is against you. You can't be scared of the clock. The clocks are not that worrisome. You could take out a clock pretty easily. Just dodge the first hand, rip that second hand right off the clock's face, and then the clocks aren't so intimidating. But in any case, even if the clock is against you, we're going to calculate the next one here, and that's going to be equal to the prior item. We're going to be dividing this by the negative PMT, shift 9. The rate's going to now then be the 16, taking that divided by the 12 for the monthly amount, comma, number of periods, brackets. We're picking then the 30 up on the left-hand side, going to make that absolute, F4 on the keyboard, $ before the L and the 5. We're going to take that minus the 4 on the left-hand side, closing up the brackets, multiplying times then the 12 to get the monthly amount, comma, and 1, closing up the brackets, shift 0, in enter. I think that's it. So there we have it. We got the 98598. If I was to copy that down, I think it's populating properly. Let's double check it. I'm going to delete that last one, double check that last 98598 at the bottom of year 4. Year 4 ending at 98598 looks good. There we go. There we go. So we're going to go back up top and run it again one last time. Last time to calculate it. So enjoy it because this is the last one. So we're going to get all of the enjoyment out of this. We're going to say this equals the payment calculation divided by the negative PMT. Shift 9 rate 12% divided by 12. Then comma, number of periods, shift 9, brackets. We want the years, which are going to be on the left-hand side, 30. That's outside of our table, so we need to make it absolute. F4 on the keyboard, $sign before the L and the 5, minus then the 5 on the left-hand side, closing that up, and then multiplying times 12 to get the months, comma, and then the present value 1, close up the brackets, and enter. We got the 9811, 9811. Let's go on down to year 5 and double check on that and see if we got 9811 in our amort table. The amortization tab, we got the 9811 in the amort tab, amortized tab. There's the 9811. So if we did that one more time, just deleting these items, note again, if it's staggered, the payment calculation can be a little tricky when you copy it down and then copy down the balances. But as you copy down the balances, the payments will calculate as we go, and it should then populate. You can then double check on your amortization table. I still highly recommend constructing the amortization table, putting these in place one by one, looking at the impact on the amortization table, thereby getting a better understanding of what's actually happening throughout the 30-year time frame as time passes. Next time, we're going to be continuing on with our cash calculation, looking at our internal rate of return calculations, creating pivot tables, and thinking about how we can compare and contrast these types of loans that have a bit more risk, and using our tools, including the IRR, internal rate return.